squeeze in one more little topic to finish this exam, and this one is on diabetes. And of course, this is one of a major problem in America, and the number one killer in America is cardiovascular disease, and like 70% of the population, I believe, is overweight, 30% is considered obese, and most of those people that are overweight are also diabetics. So diabetes is kind of like the root of the problem, it kind of causes everything, because again, diabetes is also a chronic disease, and chronic disease also means it doesn't happen overnight. It's caused in many years of bad choices, or mostly lack of exercise, lack of or abundance of shitty diet and processed foods and whatnot. So it's a chronic disease. But there's 3 types of diabetes depending on how you want to look at them. So since diabetes is like the major problem in America, we're going to go over it and how to prevent it. Well, not really how to prevent it, just really defining it right now. But there's 3 types of diabetes. There's type 1, and there's type 2, and there's another guy called gestational diabetes, which isn't really, I guess you can consider it a type of diabetes, but we'll just go over each one by one. Now, a little review of what diabetes is. Diabetes just means your body either doesn't have insulin or doesn't react to insulin. Because our body lives on sugar, blood glucose, and that's the point of eating, and the point of glycolysis, the TCA cycle, the Krebs cycle, all that stuff runs on glucose or blood sugar. So after we eat or we have our cells need glucose because glycolysis and all the machinery in order to metabolize glucose is inside the cells. So here you have all that stuff that you need. So you need glucose to get inside the cells. But when you just eat, you have all this sugar chilling outside the cell, and it can't get into the cell because in order to get into the cell is impermeable to glucose. So in order for all the sugar that you just ate, it's loaded in your bloodstream right now. In order for the sugar to get into your cells, you need insulin. So your body releases insulin from the pancreas. And the cells that release insulin are called beta cells. There's 2 types of cells in the pancreas. There's beta cells and alpha cells. There's also gamma cells and all these other cells, but we don't care about them. So insulin's released from beta cells. In the section of cells that release insulin are called islets of Langerhans. Now this word is more anatomical anatomy, you really don't need to know it, but the islets of Langerhans are the types of cells that release insulin. So the beta cells releases insulin, and this insulin is released in response of the body recognizing that as high blood sugar. So it releases insulin, and what insulin does is it opens the cell, so glucose get inside of it. So insulin is kind of like a key. It lets glucose get inside the cell. Then glucose can go through glycolysis, the TCA cycle, and it can form ATP. That's good and all. That's the point of eating. That's what insulin does. This happens in a normal individual. Now in a diabetic, it depends if it's type 1 or type 2, but either they don't make insulin for some reason. If they don't make insulin, glucose can't get into the cells, that's bad. Or the insulin they do release doesn't affect the cells as much. The cells are insensitive to insulin. So I'll write that. They're insensitive to insulin. So, and now if glucose can't get into the cells, this will be a problem. Your body can get energy from fat and proteins, remember metabolism, so it can get energy from other sources, but a high blood sugar just isn't good for many reasons. It causes your blood to be acidic and your organs to be acidic, which is not good over the long run. It can cause your feet to fall off. It can cause peripheral neuropathy, which means your blood flow is decreased to your peripherals. It can cause retinal damage or eye damage to make you blind. So like coma, all that stuff. So high blood sugar isn't good. Now remember, the risk factor is between 100 and 125 is considered pre-diabetic. If you're above 125, like if you're 126 or higher, you're a diabetic. That automatically puts you on high risk. Now a diabetic can easily there's been instances where diabetics have blood sugars of like 900. Clearly that's not good at all. That person probably would die soon if they don't get an intervention. So in our type 1 diabetic's case, it's an autoimmune disease. What that means is they were either born with it or the environment through radioactivity, whatever has caused it. But they're born with it. What this means is their beta cells, their body thinks the beta cells are enemies. So it destroys the beta cells. So it attacks the beta cells, just like an autoimmune disease. Now, if it attacks the beta cells, you can't make insulin. If you can't make insulin, you can't have sugar go into the cells, and thus you have a high blood sugar. So they need insulin injections. I'll clear off the screen a little bit. So type 1 diabetics need insulin. It's an autoimmune disease. So the body destroys the beta cells, and they need insulin injections in order to live a normal life. And since it's an autoimmune disease, that means it's not a lifestyle choice, so they can't really control it with exercise and diet. So unfortunately, the whole life they have to take insulin injections because they don't have these beta cells. These beta cells can't regrow after they're destroyed. So type 1 diabetic is either genetic or an autoimmune disease, or it's a mutation when they were born, so it's whatever. Fortunately, this is only like 5% of the population. It's a very small percent of the population. Most of the population is type 2 diabetics. Now, type 2 diabetic means they're insensitive to insulin. They make insulin just fine. So the beta cells release insulin just like normal. But over the years, remember, it's not an overnight thing. Over the years, they have released so much insulin in response to such a high increase of blood sugar, mostly like a shitty diet or lack of exercise. So they release so much insulin. But over time, the cells have become insensitive or tolerant of insulin. Now, an example everyone can relate to is alcohol. So say you never drink a day, you never drink before in your life, you go out and you have one beer, it's a certain amount of alcohol, whatever, and one beer gets you drunk off your ass. You're all slurred, speech, you're belligerent, drunk. So one beer did that. Now, over the years, not over the years, I guess, over the months, if you keep drinking every single day, eventually now you can handle like 10 beers and not get drunk. So it's the same alcohol, but what's happened is your cells or your body has become tolerant of the alcohol. So you need much more to have the same effect. Well, it's the same thing with insulin. Over the years, you've had so much insulin that your cells are now intolerant. So they're insensitive to insulin, so you need much more insulin to have the same effect. Now, bad things about that is insulin isn't just for blood sugar. Insulin also does many other things in the body. It causes fat storage, which is why diabetics are fat, because they release so much insulin. I guess overweight is a nicer way to say it. But they release so much insulin that they've increased their fat storage. Insulin also causes it's a major anabolic hormone. It causes everything to grow. So that's why diabetics have a weight problem also. So what they can do to fix, so they just need to control the diet, really. Insulin injections aren't really going to help unless they're beyond control. It's mostly just exercise and diet to fix it. And you can actually reverse type 2 diabetes if you lose enough weight. You control your blood sugar well enough, you can reverse type 2 diabetes. But it's just a problem with insulin insensitivity. Now, exercise increases your insulin sensitivity, which is why exercise is so awesome. So if you get anything out of this class, if you don't learn a thing, at least know exercise is good, because that's what this whole class is about, how exercise is medicine. It cures the body. All chronic diseases are cured by exercise. So exercise increases your insulin sensitivity, and that's good. The other type of diabetes is called gestational diabetes. And you can only have gestational diabetes if you're pregnant, which means you have to be a woman, because I don't think any man is pregnant. So you have to be a woman to have gestational diabetes, and you have to be pregnant. And you can tell just by the name. What this means is because insulin can cross the placenta to get into the infant's bloodstream. So the mother hasn't not taken care of her body at all. So over the years, I guess, over the months, that since she hasn't taken care of her body, her baby suffers, and all that insulin that she's releasing goes into the infant's bloodstream. And thus the infant is born already insensitive to insulin, so that's not good. So gestational diabetes happens when you're pregnant. So these are types of diabetes. Now, the reason why diabetes is so bad in America is because it increases your heart disease risk. It's since not really type 1 diabetes. Majority of the population is type 2 diabetic. Out of all the diabetes, 95% are type 2. The reason being because since they can't digest this blood sugar, or they release so much insulin. Insulin increases your body fat storage. It increases many other things. It's a major anabolic hormone. They've increased over the years their truncal obesity. So all their fat accumulates in their abdominal region, and that's not good at all, because fat can either accumulate in your abdominal region or in your hips. If it's in your abdominal region, that's bad. It puts extra stress on your heart. It makes insulin not as efficient. So obesity can lead to diabetes, because the more fat you have around your cells, the more work insulin has to do in order to get through the fat and get to your cells. So it's kind of like a vice versa thing. Diabetes leads to obesity. Obesity leads to diabetes. Just to be safe, exercise, avoid diabetes. Just don't chance it.